So recently, I was watching this shaky little video from a flight over the Javari Valley, and there is this one frame that just will not leave my head. You are in this tiny plane, nothing glamorous, just aluminum and duct tape rattling over a carpet of trees. You hear the engine whining, you see that endless green, and then the camera dips a little and you catch it, a clearing hacked out of the forest, a handful of thatched roofs, and these figures running out into the open. They are painted red and black, they are yelling, and every single one of them is pointing a bow straight up at you like they are about to shoot the sky. The person holding the camera is clearly freaked out. You can hear the nervous breathing over the engine. The pilot is talking fast in Portuguese, saying they should not get any lower. In the back, one of the indigenous observers leans over, watches the screen, and just quietly says, "They do not know who you are." For them, you are the danger. And when you freeze that frame, what you see is not some cartoon of primitive people. You see a line in the sand. These guys are standing in the middle of their whole universe, aiming wooden weapons at a flying machine, and what they are saying with their bodies is, this is as close as you get. The place where this is happening is not just any piece of forest. It is the Javari Valley, far in the western Amazon, up near the borders with Peru and Colombia. On a map, it is this big chunk of deep green with almost no roads, just rivers snaking through it like brown veins. On the ground, it is heat, insects, mud, and a wall of trees that feels like it goes on forever. Hidden in that are indigenous communities who have some contact with the outside world and, deeper in, others who have none. Brazil's own indigenous agency says this region has the highest concentration of isolated groups anywhere on Earth, dozens of separate people spread through a landscape the size of a small country. When people say uncontacted tribe, it sounds like nobody has ever laid eyes on them. That is not quite true. Neighboring indigenous groups often know they are there. They might trade indirectly, leave tools on a trail, hear them when they move camp. Planes and drones have filmed them from the air. What uncontacted really means in this context is that there has been no sustained face-to-face relationship with the national society. No missions, no schools, no clinics, no wage work, no steady flow of outsiders walking into their villages and staying. They have not had to live under our rules yet. They have not been pulled into our politics or our diseases in a big way. From their point of view, the modern world is not a thing. There is the forest, the rivers, rival groups, and these strange metal birds that roar overhead sometimes and smell like fuel. So when you see that image of them aiming arrows at the plane, you have to flip the perspective. We look at them like, whoa, there is this group that has never seen smartphones or cars or the internet. For them, it is almost the opposite. They are standing there with tools and stories that go back countless generations, looking up at this insane, noisy, unnatural object ripping across their sky. That is the alien in the scene. They are the ones who are home. The reason that frame exists at all is because people outside that forest have a very ugly track record. Over and over in the Amazon, the first sustained contacts between isolated peoples and the national society have ended in epidemics and collapse. There are real cases, not even that far back in time, where a group finally met missionaries or loggers or rubber tappers, and within a few years, half or more of the community was gone. Influenza, measles, respiratory infections, malaria, stuff most of us shrug off with medicine and rest, rip through people who have no built-up immunity and no access to hospitals. It is like dropping a new predator into an ecosystem that has no defenses against it. One small group in the Brazilian forest, the Zoe, had their first big contact in the 1980s. Missionaries showed up, thought they were doing a good thing, brought gifts, brought the gospel, brought basic health care. Along with all that came viruses. Almost immediately, people started dying. Not from arrows or bullets or starvation, just from being close to bodies that carried diseases their immune systems had never had to figure out. That story is not unique. It is the rule. Because of disasters like that, Brazil shifted its policy in the late 1980s. The old idea was, we have to go in, make peaceful contact, bring them into the system, get them identity papers, give them services, and then they will be safe. The new idea was almost the opposite. The safest thing is to protect their land and leave them alone. The agency that deals with indigenous affairs set up a specific department for isolated peoples and basically wrote a rule in big letters, no contact, unless they come out on their own and ask for it. Instead of trekking into villages, the job is to fly patrols at a distance, map the rough locations of their gardens and houses, mark those boundaries, and push governments to legally lock down those territories. That is what happened in the Javari Valley. In the 1990s, the government officially demarcated a huge indigenous territory there, covering the headwaters of a bunch of rivers. Non-indigenous people who were living inside had to leave. Today, on paper, it is illegal for outsiders to go into that area without permission. There are a few protection posts along the rivers where indigenous rangers and federal workers check boats, turn back illegal fishers and loggers, and watch for trouble. You cannot just rent a canoe and paddle in to meet the lost tribe. If you try, you are breaking the law. The group you see in those aerial photos and drone clips is one of several isolated communities inside that protected zone. The exact name they call themselves, we do not know. They have their own language, their own kinship system, their own history that has never been written down. All we see from the outside is a ring of longhouses and a clear patch of forest, little swiddens of manioc and plantain around the edges, smoke rising from cooking fires, and bodies moving along well-worn paths. The details, though, you can fill in by looking at what we know about their neighbors who did have contact. Think about an ordinary morning in that village. The air is thick even before the sun comes up. The forest around you is not quiet. There are frogs and insects and birds making noise like a broken speaker. The roofs of your house are woven palm leaves that go dark and shiny when they are wet. You wake up in a hammock or on a mat, kids bundled up against parents, the last embers of the night fire pulsing faintly red. Someone stirs the coals, adds dry wood, and the smoke starts to keep the mosquitoes off again. Women and girls head to the gardens with baskets and digging sticks. Men and boys either go down toward the river to check fish traps or pick up bows and arrows and melt into the trees to look for game. The older people stay in the shade, fixing tools, telling stories, watching the little ones. Dogs drift between houses, sniffing, catching scraps. There is no clock but the sun, no calendar but the rain, and the fruiting of certain trees. Every object around you comes from the forest. Your bow is carved from a tree your grandfather knew how to find. Your arrows are feathered with birds your uncle showed you how to track. The paint on your skin comes from seeds and roots your mother mashed in a carved wooden bowl. The thatch on your roof is replaced by the same hands that sleep under it. Your world is not primitive, it is complete. Now add the one modern intrusion they cannot ignore, the sound of engines. If you grew up in a place like that, the first time you hear a plane, it must feel like a giant insect or spirit tearing across the sky. There is no context for it. It is not Air Force or tourism or science. It is a roaring thing that appears, leaves a scar of noise behind it, and sometimes circles in a way that feels like it is watching you. Maybe your parents tell you a story about strangers who came up a river once with metal pots and guns and left sickness behind. Maybe they tell you about an uncle who never came back after meeting white men at a logging camp. The exact words change from group to group, but the pattern is the same. Outsiders are dangerous. So when that plane comes over the clearing and you are an adult man whose whole job is to protect that circle of houses, what do? You do what any of us would do if a helicopter hovered low over our kid's schoolyard and we thought the last time that happened people died. You grab a weapon, you make yourself visible, and you send a message. We see you. Do not come down. The way they aim those bows is not noise. It is communication. Some of those images from other parts of the Amazon show arrows actually being fired at helicopters and drones. Sometimes they hit the metal. Most of the time they just fall short. But that is not the point. The point is, we are not confused. This is not a show. You are not welcome. There is something almost brutally honest about that. In a world where everybody is online begging for attention, there is a group of people whose first instinct when they see a camera is to try to knock it out of the sky. The protection laws around them exist because the alternative is not some cool cultural exchange. The alternative, historically, has been disease, violence, and land theft. The Javari Valley is not just trees and indigenous communities, it sits on top of resources. There are fish that fetch good money in distant markets. There is timber. There are minerals, and there is access. Drug traffickers move along some of those rivers, using them as quiet routes between countries. Illegal fishers set up hidden camps. Gold miners creep in with pumps and mercury. All of those outsiders bring germs, guns, and motives that have nothing to do with the health of the people in that clearing. On top of that, you have this new wave of people who want contact for content. Influencers, missionary groups with drones, adventure tourists with GoPros. There are documented cases now of people trying to sneak into restricted areas or drop gifts from the air just so they can say they reached some isolated tribe. Somebody wants a viral video. Somebody wants to be the first person on their block to save a soul they have already turned into a story in their own head. The indigenous activists who live near these regions are practically screaming about it. From their point of view, it is just a new version of the same old thing. Outsiders deciding their curiosity or their God or their followers matter more than other people's survival. That is why the rules are so harsh. No entry, no overflights without permission, no missions, no tourism. For the people in that clearing, the law that keeps outsiders out is not some abstract notion of rights. It is the difference between a future where their kids grow up learning the names of every tree along their hunting paths and a future where those same kids end up in some frontier town, sick, addicted, or working as cheap labor for the very people who cut their forest down. There is a sad twist in all of this. The same state that draws lines on a map saying this is protected is also full of politicians who see the Amazon as a bank account. They push for roads, dams, agribusiness, oil. They appoint officials who do not believe uncontacted peoples even exist, or who think the best thing would be to assimilate them as fast as possible. So you have this constant battle. On one side, indigenous organizations and a handful of dedicated field workers trying to enforce the no-contact policy. On the other side, forces that say, this land is empty, we could be making money with it. That little video from the plane sits right in the middle of that fight. It is proof. Proof that there is a community there. Proof that they are alive, organized, alert, very aware of their surroundings. That kind of evidence can be used in court to defend a territory when someone claims it is just unused forest. Those images become armor for people who will never see a courtroom. At the same time, the images can be turned into entertainment. People share them with captions like, "Look at these guys shooting at a helicopter. They have no idea what is going on." That is the part that feels gross. Because those men know exactly what is going on, in the one way that matters to them. They know there is a threat at the edge of their world, and they are doing their job, which is to stand up and tell it to stay away. If you sit with that for a minute, it messes with your sense of time. In our world, everything is about connection. Your phone pings, your feed updates. You can get a message from another continent in a second. In their world, the only messages from outside come as distant engine noise once in a while, or rumors drifting in from other tribes who have had bad experiences. Yet in both worlds, the same human thing is happening. People are trying to keep their families alive. It is tempting to romanticize them, to say they are pure, untouched, living how humans are meant to live. That is its own trap. They have conflict, they have fear, they have hunger and grief and all the messy stuff that comes with being human. They are not museum pieces. They are people making hard choices in a hard place, just like everyone else. The one big difference is that we have the power to destroy their world without ever meaning to. A single coughing missionary, a single miner who brings in influenza or coronavirus without even knowing he is sick. A single influencer who sneaks in for a video and leaves viruses behind like footprints. That is all it takes. So when you see that screenshot, those bodies painted red, bows drawn back, arrows pointed at a speck in the sky, remember what you are actually looking at. You are not watching savages threaten civilization. You are watching a community draw a boundary and enforce it with the only tools they have. And the question for the rest of us is stupidly simple and weirdly hard. Are we going to respect that line or not? Because right now, somewhere in that valley, kids are growing up who have never heard a car horn, never seen a screen light up, never been told that the forest they live in is worth more as pasture. Their map of the world is smaller than ours. That does not make it less real. If anything, it might be more honest. There is the village. There is the hunting ground. There is the garden. There are the neighbors you fear. There is the sound in the sky that means trouble. We're the ones who have to decide whether that sound keeps getting louder until it blows their world apart, or whether we are finally smart enough for once to back off. To use planes and drones and laws not to break into their lives, but to keep everyone else out. It is not about turning them into a spectacle or a cause. It is about giving them the one thing we all keep saying we want for ourselves, the right to decide how much of the modern world we let in.